Off we go then. So, as I was saying earlier, during our practice earlier, Chris was playing the role of a student that wasn't the most conversational, talkative person, right? And I asked him, what did you do last weekend? And Chris was playing the role of Mr. Tanaka, very typical Japanese name. And he said, I went to a drinking party. And he didn't really expand on that. And then I asked him, okay, great. Do you enjoy drinking parties? And then he said, yes, drinking parties is fun. And then I said, good. Do you prefer drinking parties with colleagues or do you prefer drinking parties with friends? And Chris very smartly playing the role of a student with low vocabulary, said colleague. And then I explained, someone you work together with. Right? So in Japanese we say doryo. So I'll ask you the question one more time. Do you prefer drinking parties with colleagues or friends? And then he said, friends. And then I went into a conversation about, do you feel nervous drinking with your bosses? Do you feel like you have to read the room? Do you know what reading the room is? I don't know. Reading the room means you have to think about what to say and what to do because important people are watching, your bosses, your co-workers. In Japanese, you would say kuki o yomu. Do you feel like you have to read the room when you go to drinking parties? And he said, a little nervous. It opened up a whole conversation, right? All of a sudden, the conversation is more interesting for them, it's more interesting for me. I'm getting something out of them now, right? I'm getting into their mind. Why do they feel nervous in drinking parties? It's a conversation I have with so many Japanese people. In fact, just yesterday, I had my own drinking party with my papatomo. Papatomo means fellow fathers. So I went with two other dads, and they bring their kids to the same daycare that I bring my kids to, and they both put their kids in the British pond as well. So actually, if I was a more nervous personality, I would find that quite nerve-wracking because they're customers. But in that situation, I wasn't thinking of them as customers. I was thinking of them as papatomos, as daddy buddies, basically, right? In America, you have small league baseball and small league American football, right? And the dads that go to support their kids together and swear at the referee, that would be like a papatomo type of deal, But I was having that conversation with them yesterday. Do you feel pleasure and enjoyment when you go out for drinking parties with your colleagues? Does it make you nervous or do you actually enjoy it? And their answer was, it's not fun at all. Because I can't let my guard down. I can't show who I am. I can't make jokes. I always have to worry about how I'm going to be perceived, right? So that's a conversation that's relatable to any Japanese person, right? And that's a conversation that can be started from just, what did you do last weekend? I went to a drinking party, right? And we can get those conversations out of them. Ikura demo. There's unlimited possibilities, They start thinking about how to expand on things naturally more themselves as well. I've had students which they always gave me simple, short answers in the past. It was always just, yes, I went to barbecue. I went to swimming pool. I went to izakaya. How was it? It was yummy. I've had students like that. Now, they monologue for 3 minutes. And I'm just there taking note of all their samurai English errors. And then I'll tell it when they're finished. People change. They do change, but it takes time. So to get more out of a conversation with students that are less talkative, we also have to be a bit more skillful in our ability to make the conversation more engaging or interesting, Things like that, little things like that can help. Have you ever experienced this situation? Okay. All right, final role play situation. Ricky, please read through this one.
You have a plan for the lesson based on what the student's standard lesson format is. The student suddenly expresses that they want to do something different. Your first thought is, the customer is always right. So you agree to their plan and switch gears. At the same time, you feel a little taken back by their sudden show of assertiveness. You wonder, does he see me as a teacher?
Okay, right? So it is a little bit startling when a student just suddenly says, today I don't want to do role play. Today I want to do this. Or today no spreadsheet. I want you to check my email, right? Agreeing is the right choice, right? We don't need to be assholes. It's not a negotiation. agreeing is the right decision in that situation, but the way in which you agree is very important, you know? Okay, so we'll get into pairs. One will play the role of a student, the other of a teacher. The teacher will either declare that we will begin spreadsheet review or roleplay practice. Okay, let's begin today's roleplay predictions about the Japanese election. Who do you predict will win the Japanese election? Let's do that today. To which the student will decline and insist that today's lesson be dedicated to something of their choice. I want to check my email for Dr. Asperini, right? Something like this, yeah? Sorry, I want to focus on presentation, okay? Like this. It can be very startling, right? The teacher will then respond by agreeing, but not seeming intimidated or frightened by the student's sudden show of assertiveness. A teacher should never come across as too prideful nor too passive, right? I'll read that again. A teacher should never come across as too prideful nor passive. Neither of these things are good, all right? So Chris, could you please read the top line there? Being too prideful.
Being too prideful screams insecurity. Do you know who I am?
Right, yes. And that would go back to Birdman. Put some respect on my name, right? That's what being too prideful basically says. It says, I'm not confident in myself. I'm not secure in myself, right? And then go to the passive one as well, Chris, below that one.
Being too passive screams insecurity. Yes. Sounds good. Let's do that now.
Right? So it can be very easy to do that. That is like the first instinct that we have when a student suddenly says, I want to focus on email, I want to focus on presentation, and it takes us by surprise. It can be very easy to be like, oh, yes sir, we'll do that right away. That comes very naturally to us, right? We have to strike that balance sweetly. So agreeing to their proposal makes sense. What matters is that we maintain composed and confident body language during the process of agreeing with their suggestion. Next page for tips. Okay, so Karen, could you please read the first part of don'ts?
Don't be so quick to fold your hand and bow your head. Give the moment space to breathe before agreeing to their suggested change of plans.
Yep, good. So, give the moment space to breathe. Same tip as the last scenario, right? Give the moment space to breathe is one of the biggest tips I can offer to any teacher. Forget teaching, any job. Doesn't matter what you do, if you give the moment space to breathe, it speaks and sends the message that you're a thoughtful person. Who knows Jordan Peterson? We all know Jordan Peterson, right? Very hard man not to respect. Very, very hard man not to respect. He's got a lot of wisdom, he's got a lot of compassion. And if you watch his interviews, he's not so eager and jumpy to answer the question. He'll often take a moment to pause and think, and he'll be like, I don't have an immediate answer for that, but right now I feel inclined to say that it may be, this is what he does, So giving a moment space to breathe is just useful advice for any situation, period, okay? Ricky, could you read the student ... I want to...
I want to focus presentation practice. Yes, okay.
So this is a no-no. If you just immediately fold and say, yes, okay, then you've kind of lost control of the lesson there. You're not a teacher in their eyes anymore. You're kind of just checking something for them now. And Chris, would you be able to read the reason part down there?
When a person responds instantaneously to a person's suggestion, what does it say? If you say so, boss, right away, sir.
Yeah, that's literally what it says. When you respond instantaneously. If Ricky says, hey Hugo, let's go for a beer, and I'm like, yes, sure. Like, that I'm a little bit too eager to say yes, which means either I'm really afraid of Ricky, or like, I really want to be in Ricky's good books. I want to get close to this guy. Like, when you respond way too quickly in that situation, it comes across as very eager, very unconfident, very uncertain of yourself, right? Let's go to the do's, all right? So Karen, please read the top one.
Take a moment to calmly process what they have suggested. Ask a question back to confirm their desire to change today's lesson plan.
Okay, right, so you can also read through that middle part there, Karen.
So you would like us to dedicate our time to rehearsing your presentation, is that correct? okay, just to confirm, you have a presentation coming up soon and would like to focus on rehearsing that. Is my understanding right?
Good. Right, and Karen, you can just go ahead and read the reason part as well.
Kindly and confidently repeating and confirming what the student would like to do today sends the following message. I've heard your situation. I agree that this is the correct course of action for today's lesson.
Right. So this is completely different. This here is completely different to that. Okay, so
I guess really it depends on the situation. If it's something that needs done immediately, the correct response is, hey, yes sir, right away.
exactly.
If it's something that's not an immediate issue, if it's, hey, this is what I want to do in the future, then you've got a little bit more leeway to discuss it and make suggestions.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. It really depends on how urgent the situation is. And Ruki, what are your thoughts on the difference between the left and the right?
I mean, it's funny because I was on the opposite side of the military. Chris, right?
Right.
So I feel like, for me, again, the urgency was a really big factor in it. I mean, that's always a big factor in any kind of operation, like in that setting,
Exactly.
right? I feel like most times in this occupation, that level of urgency is never there,
Yeah.
right? So I think
You're talking about teaching
yes,
occupation,
yes,
right?
the teaching occupation,
exactly.
right? It's not like people are going to lose their lives over,
No.
3 minutes of talking about, okay, do you want to actually do this instead today? So I think being able to kind of give off that more thoughtful, like aura, right, is definitely a little bit more convincing to the student. Like, okay,
Exactly, and like you said, you were on the side of being ordered and accepting orders immediately, right? But in lessons, we're the teachers. So there's something slightly off when the student suggests a change of plan and they just accept that we have to immediately agree to it. And they don't actually. They don't expect us to just agree to it and move straight into it. But our reaction sets up that dynamic. If we say, oh, yes, right away, then that's what it becomes, right? So in the military, if I'm a private and I'm dealing with a sergeant or a colonel, that is the right response because I'm supposed to take orders. But in the classroom, the teacher is supposed to guide the direction of the lesson and decide the best course of action for the student. That's what the job description of teacher entails, So, yeah, but all very, very good points. Karen, have you got thoughts on that one? The whole contrast between these two?
This, honestly speaking, is a struggling point for me, as you might know. So actually, when I'm seeing this way, is it okay for me to assume that when I do this, it's more like setting up that more calmer energy?
Of course.
Because when I do that, I tend to kind of be a bit the jumpy type, right? So, like, I think the main issue I feel is that I then, the lesson is very shaky because of it. Even if when I do what they want, well, if I do that, I give myself more time to stay in control and breathe.
Yeah, I think you've hit the most important point there, which is, again, it's restoring composure and calmness to the lesson,
Yeah.
You don't just give the steering wheel to them and say, right, you're the captain of the ship right now. You say scrub the decks and I'll scrub the decks, right? It's not a pride or power balance type of thing. It's restoring calmness and composure to the lesson. It's okay. So let me confirm, you've got a presentation coming up. When is the date again? Could you remind me? Okay, 3 weeks away. Yeah, it would be good if we started practicing in advance. I agree with you. Okay, then let's do that, right? And then you share the screen, and could you send me the file? And still the class and the lesson maintains that appropriate aura, that appropriate atmosphere, And the ship doesn't sink, it doesn't get all jumpy and jittery and nerve-wracking. And it's a very understandable reaction. It's not a cardinal sin to react like this as an inexperienced teacher, but it's one of the hardest things. It is one of the hardest things because it requires you to first calm yourself down and then calm down the situation and then move in the right direction, because what they're proposing has a good reason. If they've got a presentation coming up and they want to dedicate their time to that, fair enough, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and we should agree, but the manner in which we agree is very important. Okay, so I've heard your situation. I agree that this is the correct course of action for today's lesson. You're not being ordered by the student. Now you are agreeing with the student that this is an appropriate change of plans. I agree. As your teacher, I believe that is the right course of action. Totally different to just running around like a bellboy, right? You know, so. All right, so one will play the role of student and the other will play the role of a teacher. Karen spends a lot of time with me role-playing these situations, so I like to keep it with Karen, with you guys, because it's quite a rare opportunity for her. So Ricky, you just went with Karen now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, you go with Karen, and Ricky, I'll go with you again, and we'll play this situation now as realistically as we can. Could you set a 10-minute timer on it?
Sure.
Cheers. Good.
Student?
Yeah.
I'll be teacher.
So I'll be the student first.
Great.
Dr. Nakamura, alright?
Okay, so we're just doing regular lessons.
Alright,
Yeah.
so
Cool. So
Dr. Nakamura,
we
we're
haven't
gonna
done a
start
roleplay in a while, so let's go ahead and give one of those
slides
shots.
now.
Okay.
So
Today,
Send the
says you
email
have
tomorrow.
3. They are having
Okay.
a competition
well, that
to
does
decide
sound
who is
quite
the next
urgent.
prime minister.
So,
So
okay, let's have
what's
a
your
look at it.
prediction for the
Okay,
next Japanese
I'll
election?
send it to you.
Yeah. I think that's more simple. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
I
I think
don't
I think that's
I'm
Should be
not
more complicated. Yeah.
really
Okay.
interested.
Now it's your turn.
Okay.
I understand.
All
Alright, well, anyway,
so
let's do
take
predictions,
a look at
because
our
it's common.
slideshow today.
Is
I
worse.
it need to be
So
checked.
for example, if
before
I brush
in 1 month.
for
Okay.
2 hours,
You know what? That's a
my
good idea.
gums will
Looking at your presentation, that would be a good way.
if I brush
to
for
practice
5-10
our
minutes,
English. So
it's
if
just
you
perfect.
will
Do
go
you remember
ahead and
just
send me the
perfect? Just
presentation,
totally.
we can take a look
Oh,
at it.
nice.
Oh, very good.
I'll put that in 3G now.
I
like that,
3G.
okay.
Good job. Nice.
Yeah, that's. I like doing it that
it's
way.
possible to
you
do
know, ask
too
a
much
couple of
or
questions.
something. We call that
I
overkill.
think by asking
But I
questions,
agree
then
with you
you
actually. I
reestablish
like your suggestion.
that you're in charge of the situation.
Let's do a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
You
more
say what you want. Okay,
spreadsheet
well,
practice.
what's the
And
presentation?
Let's
When
focus
is
on
it
the
going to
yellow
happen?
ones. What do you think?
And then I say,
That
I think
sounds
that's a good
good.
idea.
Yes.
And
We can
now
also say sounds like a
who's
plan.
back to
Sounds
making
like
the decision.
a plan.
It sounds
Yes,
like a
I
plan.
thought
It's a
about
good
it. I
idea.
think this is
I
good.
agree
Yeah.
with your idea.
I
So
agree to.
I can put that on the
Yes.
spreadsheet too later.
I like that very much
Thank you.
because I feel
I
I get
it.
startled
that
when I
you-
get
You changed it
startled.
to spreadsheet
Then the whole
instead
lesson
of
becomes
role play or something.
startled.
That's
So
good.
in this
Yeah.
way, I can just
That was like one of the situations I actually.
Well,
keep
you
my
just
composure.
ask a question,
And I was
because
like,
now you're getting
trying to
more
figure it out.
information.
I was like,
Yeah.
in my head, I
And
would
by
say the
asking
first
the
thing that crossed
question,
my
you
mind was like,
reestablish
okay, remember
control.
that you
Yes,
have
yes,
to
yes,
do this
And,
yourself.
and it keeps it
Yeah,
friendly.
This
Yeah.
spreadsheet
Oh,
exactly.
well,
It's
what
like, I'm not a
time,
tool
when's
for
the
you.
presentation, what's it
Yes,
going to be?
exactly.
This is the tool
Yeah,
for you.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's a good
right.
idea.
And
And it
so that
keeps
was
it
the most
friendly,
difficult
but
situation
still,
I come across.
I'm
I
in
was like
charge,
this.
yes, I
And I was
agree,
like-
this is a good idea,
And
that's
so
why we're
I
doing it.
hadn't done
Yes,
the spreadsheet
yes,
yes.
because we were like 20 minutes in.
yeah.
And so I was like,
Alright, you
let
wanna
me go ahead and pull up your
teach your-
spreadsheet
Yeah,
and
I'll
see
do
what the
it.
progress is
Okay,
like.
so Dr. Nakamura,
like,
let's
of course,
start
I was
with
planning
your
to the spreadsheet
review for today's
but
spreadsheet review.
maybe starting it a bit early
So,
is not a bad idea. So let me check where we're
I
at.
have a presentation.
That was actually the incident that I texted you about. I was like,
I remember.
okay.
I remember you messaged me.
what is your
I was like,
presentation
do you have any
about?
advice for this man?
Presentation is
Yeah,
about.
it's a tricky situation because
Oh, I see.
when a,
Is it
when a
very
student,
urgent
when a
when,
student does that,
Is the presentation?
as the
Uh,
teacher, your
presentation
first
is
thought
next.
is, yeah, I do have to
Okay,
agree with.
That is quite
I do have
urgent.
to-
So
I have to kind
yeah, I understand. Let's have a look
Not
at it
necessarily
together.
have to, but
And
it's
I think
advised.
it's a good idea that we
What they are
do this
asking.
now.
Yeah.
So
But
please
then
send me the
just
file.
maintain
and then,
that
Yes.
this is a
let's have a look at
discussion.
it together.
I am your teacher, you are my
Yeah.
student, and I have a
Little
say.
bit
I have a say in
theory.
your lesson.
Not
in
bad.
your lesson plan. you
Nah,
know,
no,
so-
That's why I
You wanna
tried to
try it
put
one
it
more
right
time?
here.
Yeah, I want
Okay,
to.
that's where
Thank you.
we're at,
Okay,
right?
so
And
then
then
I would like to start
let's see
with
what kind of progress we can
your
make today
spreadsheet
with this,
reviews.
right? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Actually,
So I was like,
I
alright,
had
you know
a
what? Actually,
presentation.
Extra bit of
I'd
time
like
on the
to
spreadsheet
go-
review doesn't sound bad.
Okay,
We've
right.
got
What's
a
the
couple
presentation
materials
about?
easier.
It's
that,
about implants.
Yes.
should probably be moved
Oh,
up.
I
right?
see.
So
And when does your
that's how I went
presentation?
about it. But even so, after that, I was like, dude,
When do you
I
have your
that, right?
presentation?
It's
You know?
next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Okay,
you
that
know
sounds
the answer.
pretty
right?
urgent.
I think you know the
I
answer.
understand.
Like,
Okay.
as long as the student
I think it's a good
understands
idea
this is
that
a-
we
this is
look at this
this is a
together now.
discussion
So
that
please send
is
me the
supposed to be
file
had.
and we'll
You know, I'm
check
your
it out
teacher.
together.
Okay.
and I should have a
please.
say in
Yeah.
what your appropriate
it's
lesson
good.
plan is.
Yeah,
you know,
that was
so
good.
as long as they understand that,
Yeah,
you know,
just ask them
it's
the question.
9 times out of 10,
It's
it's
easy-
it's
easy thing
the
to
right
do.
thing to agree
That
with.
is like my
Honestly,
biggest
change.
struggling point that I'm like, yeah, I
I
think
will
it's a
say
good
with
idea.
a lot of
Like
students,
even when it's a
because
role play,
they
I
often
struggle
don't
with
understand when
with
they're being
that
asked
aspect.
something or
So
when
yeah.
they're being guided to do
I just
something.
gotta do it.
So what I've seen
And
with
that's
a
a
lot
good
of lessons
idea.
is
That's-
teachers will say,
That's probably. Oh, yeah.
well,
That's a
shall
good
we
idea.
get into a role play then?
And
And
it's
then the
agreeing,
student will be
but,
like thinking, oh,
you
they're
know,
asking.
kind of,
Mm.
the subtext
Role play or
is,
script.
because I think it's a
I
good
want to
idea.
focus on spreadsheet.
we're-
And then the teacher
Yeah.
You don't have to say.
possibly
it.
misunderstand
It's-
that
It's
as
implied.
they-
I think it's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
idea.
they've asserted
So
themselves
let's do
and
Exactly.
insisted that
And
it's
then you
spreadsheet.
also.
So a lot
I mean,
of
that's not
students
correct
actually
at
don't
all,
know when they're
actually.
being
It's not.
asked or when
But
they're
you
being
still
guided.
have
It-
to.
And I noticed
Yeah,
that
and
too.
it's a very friendly way of saying
Actually,
it.
from
But
that was
yeah,
one of the first things I noticed about a lot of these
Yeah.
students. And I was like, alright, I'm gonna stop asking questions.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
And it's not
Let's
to be
do
like
that now.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, ask a few questions.
like
means
I ask
you'll
questions in the
consider-
discussions, and
I think we did already go a little bit over time with that one, but that was the third and final role play. So good stuff. How did we do here?
Good.
And this was good for me. Yeah.
Like you said, it doesn't come entirely natural to you. Your first reaction is often to just say yes, yes sir, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and there's a time and place for that. Like as Ricky and Chris were saying, when the situation is very dire and urgent, right? Let's say the North Koreans have suddenly decided to storm the city of Tokyo, right? Well, then the left side is probably more appropriate, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's time and place, but in the classroom, in the lesson, the teacher most certainly has a say on how the lesson plan should pan out. And taking 30 seconds to just reconfirm and clarify, this is what you would like to do because you've got this coming up. Okay, I agree with your plan. Like it may not be intuitive, but it can definitely be trained and it can definitely be made into second nature, just like 4G, 3G, 2G, 1G thing, right? You know, anything can be made into 4G. That's my philosophy of life. Anything can be made into 4G, 5G. Okay, so, and then that's fine. That's end of phase 2. That's the end of, oh sorry, that's end of phase 1, I believe actually. So yeah, that was my mistake there. Phase 2, kindness. Okay, so we spent a lot of time role playing and practicing how to be assertive without coming across as an arsehole, right? Without being a birdman, right? Never go full birdman, right? Put some respect to my name, right? Yeah, with 5 goons behind you, real tough guy. Right, okay. All right, so have you ever experienced this situation? So, Karen, please read this one here.
I just can't get the conversation going with this student. They really don't seem that interested in making conversation. Either that or they are shy. This hour is feeling long for me.
Ooh, boy, do we know this one. Okay, right, but the thing is, like, the beautiful thing about this is just the ability to hold a conversation, even with the less talkative types, is just a skill that's going to serve you so well in life. It doesn't matter what you do, right? You're doing a communication major right now, so you'd have a lot of lesson material and curriculum dedicated to this topic, right? And especially in Japan, a lot of successful people are actually very poor conversationalists. But you need to work with them too. We can't only speak with the most fascinating and interesting people. If we think like that, we're not going to get anywhere in life, because you're lucky to meet people like that. They're not the standard, they're actually the exception, especially in Japan, you know? So, Chris. Yes.
It would be nice if every person we ever met was easy to talk to.
An interesting person.
Genuinely interested in others.
We're all good at holding a conversation.
Wouldn't it be nice if every single person we met for the rest of our life was just a fascinating person to have conversation with? Like, our whole movie is a script written by Quentin Tarantino, right? Wouldn't that be lovely, right? The fact of the matter is, you do have a lot of people that, I mean, objectively speaking, they're just boring to talk to. They're not bad people at all. They're not bad people, it's just not their forte, right? But sadly, Karen?
A lot of people aren't this.
A lot of good, smart people, in fact.
May not be the smoothest conversationalist.
Or have the most fascinating, charismatic aura.
Yeah, not everyone, right? Such people are the exception, they're not the standard, right? So how do you solve this, right? Okay, so we're going to play a very interesting game now, okay? You're going to see some lines on the screen. These are about our students, okay? You've all got your notebooks now, so you don't need to write these descriptions. You just need to write the name of the student that you think it is. We're not going to say it. So let's read this one. So Ricky.
I used to be a pretty decent football player.
And Chris.
I was a speedy winger with a good cross.
Karen.
My job takes a lot of resilience because I deal with terminally ill patients on the regular.
Ricky.
But thanks to having the best wife a man could ask for, I get through it somehow.
Chris.
I owe her a lot.
All right. So how well do you know your students, right? This exercise is designed to examine actually how much interest have I taken in my student, which is a huge feature of kindness. Kindness can be described as, by some people, it can be misunderstood as the lack of strictness or the lack of being aggressive. I like to think of kindness as much more of a proactive thing rather than a reactive and passive thing. A lot of people take kindness as a passive and reactive trait. I actually think of kindness as more of an alpha trait than a beta trait, actually, because you are actively taking interest in people. You want to know about their lives. You want to know what their motivations are, what their goals are, what their dreams are. What are they doing to get to their dreams? What are they going through right now? Can I offer any kind of assistance or support to that? This is kindness. Really knowing your student, right? You know. So everyone, please write one dot and then the student which you think this is. Okay. You don't need to get it right, by the way. This is just an exercise. This wasn't hard for you, was it?
No.
Okay, so my description of kindness is pretty accurate then, because you are a very kind person. Anyone who knows Karen would describe her as an extremely kind person. And it's not because you're passive and reactive to people, and because you're not capable of showing strength. It's because you actually take an interest in people, right? And that is one of the most important traits of a teacher, to know your student, to have genuine curiosity about your student. What makes them tick? How can I get the most out of them? What makes them more motivated? You know, why are they doing this? You know? So it's no surprise to me that you got that one like that. You know, you guys can check who Karen has down.
I don't know that I have.
You haven't taught him before. Okay.
I'm not sure. I've seen the
Maybe, and Chris, you've
Not
taught him a few times, but not too
Oh.
often, right? Does
Maybe.
any of it ring a bell now? Now that you
Yeah.
have the name? Yeah. It's fun stuff. It's fun stuff. Okay, the next one. Who am I? Write my name below. Let's do an easy one. This one is going to be very, very easy, okay? This one is going to be easy. I do love me a bit of Bitcoin. And you could consider me a connoisseur of the nightlife. I was born ready for the nightlife. Ladies beware. Brace yourself. the king of Bangkok and Amsterdam is here. I do a pretty good impression of this guy. I know. Okay, guys, so please write down his name. This is a freaking formality, though, right? We all know who this is, right?
I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember the name because I haven't taught him in a while. But I see his face. I see his face telling me about it. I see him like just living.
I see him.
Literally these words, when I read these words, I just think he just takes physical shape in front of my eyes. I was born ready for the nightlife.
That's so good.
Say it 3 times in front of the mirror and you
Yes.
just pop.
That's right.
Got too high.
Oh god. I think everyone knew from I Do Love Me a Bit
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Already,
I think that already gave it away. Alright. Yeah. Chris.
Oh yeah. Easy one.
Of course. Alright. Okay, the next one. I played judo in high school, and Ricky.
I miss it, but I can't afford to injure my hands now.
Alright, some of you may already know it. Chris?
I don't particularly enjoy getting attention. It actually makes me uncomfortable.
Karen?
But I've gained a reputation for being solid, reliable, and thorough in my research.
Ricky?
Resulting in my holding top position in a well-respected study group.
What do I do in my spare time? Well, I do like reading mangas like Gundam. Now that is a good manga, very thought-provoking and well-written story.
Okay. Right, what do we think? There is a possibility again that you have not taught this student before. I think most of our teachers have taught pretty much everyone at this point, but yeah, I think it shouldn't be too hard. Who am I? Down below. Okay, the next one. I took over my father's hospital and grew up the hospital several times bigger than when he ran it. Yeah. Ricky?
I am known as one of the top advocates of a cutting-edge laser technology device.
Favorite anime is Hajime no Ippo, proper funny stuff.
Oh yes, and I'm also something of a study group tycoon. I run my own study group which has several hundred members, but I also get asked for support in a few others as well. I definitely know my way around the study group space.
I also believe appearance matters. A man should take care of his looks as much as a woman does. I invest in my looks and believe it pays off at work.
Who am I? Alright, so I believe that one should be easy by now. I do believe so. But it's probably difficult, which is absolutely fine. That's the whole point of this exercise. Who do you guys think it is? Okay, well, Chris, you have it right. Karen, you have it right. Ricky, you can take a look at what Chris has written there. Yeah.
Sharp dresser likes lasers.
Yeah.
I do remember the laser lasers. We were practicing
Yeah. So, knowing that his favorite anime is Hajime no Ippo really helps in dry conversations because you can relate it back to Hajime no Ippo and then he'll perk up a little bit. And then he'll be like, he always forgets that's true and that's not true. So I'll come up with something totally ridiculous from Hajime no Ippo. Like there's a really weak character called Aoki and there's a character that's invincible called Takamura. And I'll say, Aoki is much stronger than Takamura. And then he'll laugh, he'll be like, ha 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 ha, that's not true. Right? And then I'll say, Ippo is a very shy boy. And he'll say, that's true. And I'll say, good, that's how you use that's true, that's not true. It always gets him laughing. It always perks him up a little bit. It pays to know your student. It pays to know your student. It really helps to know your student, right? And the study group topic can get endless conversation because he'll never stop talking about that one. You could get him going for a whole half an hour just off that, you know. How many members do you have? How many events do you hold in a year? What's the most stressful thing about study groups? He loves talking about study groups, you know. So I don't find myself in any dry conversations with him because I know him like the back of my hand. It pays to know your student, you know. Who am I? Donkey Kong DK. Donkey Kong. Has anyone played Donkey Kong 64? Wow, no one played Donkey Kong 64?
No.
Alright. I'm half tempted to show you the DK rap right now, but later. Okay. Alright, this one is very difficult. I would be very surprised if anyone gets this. I'm zooming in and out for some reason.
Do you have the face tracking on there?
It's is that what's
Is
happening?
it trying to grab a face?
You might be onto something there, Chris.